I wouldn't put you out on the street like that. Plus, I'd die of boredom.
But you could do so much good, and you're the only one I can trust.
It's year 6 of the backlog. Can you believe we've gone this far and made this many videos about beating games in succession? I sure can't. It seems like my backlog has grown in recent years, but I'm still excited to play games when I can get to them. I tried a few things out to make my backlog journey a bit less lonely and a bit more fun this year. I streamed a few games as a VTuber on a separate secret channel, and tried to beat the games I have started but didn't complete last year. This is also the last year of the Nintendo Switch 1. Hard to think that this entire channel is mostly built on mini reviews for Nintendo Switch 1 games, and I still have a hefty library to get through on games that I own. Let's start talking about games that I started but never finished. There are numerous reasons why I start games but never finish them, just as many as there are games in this list. The most obvious reasons are either I started them in the shuffle arc year and didn't get back to them, or some other game took priority over the others, like Pokemon. It's pretty simple, really. There are a few franchises that I'll drop every other game for. I'll be listing each individual reason as it comes along, if I get to it, because I know I will be playing games that aren't even games that I was playing previously. Also, I'd like to add an addendum to the first video. I did beat Super Mario World. I just stated that I didn't complete it up until that point, but the wording was weird. With that out of the way, I will say that I was pretty unsuccessful in my attempt at beating games I abandoned temporarily. I'll probably finish them at a later date, but trust me, they will be beaten. Another thing I found was that completing previously abandoned games was a bit antithetical to streaming games. People usually want to see your reactions from start to finish rather than just the part you decided to pick up, I found. So I didn't stream the games I wanted to finish, but I did stream a few new games that I picked up this year. And when I say a few, I mean very few. Claw, Card-en-Ciel, Snufkin, Melody of Moominvalley, and Clannad. Finding a few hours to stream during the work week was difficult, and mustering up the ability to talk through it even more so, but we'll talk about that after the mini reviews. For now, let's get into the games. Snufkin, Melody of Moominvalley. Snufkin is a relatively short game with some exploration and Metroidvania-like elements, as well as sneaking missions. But it's also simple and straightforward. You start off with your progression very locked in, and unlock new areas as you gain instruments to help you progress. You also have a good amount of side quests to do as well. This is a game more geared towards younger kids, with how easy it handles, but adults should also find a calmness in playing the role of Snufkin. This is also a game for, say, a parent to play with their child. The parent reads while the kid interacts or watches. The music and art style gives it a sort of whimsy that I think few games will be able to replicate as well as Moomin does. Berserk Boy. Oh boy, I haven't met a game I didn't like so far until I played this one. Berserk Boy is a game trying to harken back to the style of Mega Man ZX and Gunvolt, but its gameplay feel just doesn't work for me. What is it about Berserk Boy that I dislike? Is it the method of attack of the main form being too indirect? The constant transforming in segments that would otherwise be pretty straightforward to play through? The weapons being too odd to use in a real fight? The enemies having way too much HP and attack power? The art style? I can't say for sure. It's probably a combination of all these things that put it the lowest so far on my personal list. Not only is it a relatively poor game, the default button mapping is pretty bad too. I didn't know what to think about this game, or what about it puts me off so hard. It has its moments of eureka where you'll feel good about figuring certain things out, and then you'll just have to attack and it falls apart from there. Some bosses are just relatively too easy, and you can exploit them with a well-timed berserk attack before they even do their final special. It can be good for speedrunning, but I don't see it in that light yet. Sorry Berserk Boy team. It recently had an update though, so it might have fixed some things that need tweaking. We'll definitely check that out later. Persona 4 Golden. Persona is a game series I'm very fond of despite having played only one title before. I beat Persona 3 Portable before and was ready to sink my teeth into Persona 4 Golden to get a taste of that feeling that I lost years ago. Persona 4 is a sort of semi-schedule management sim game with RPG and visual novel elements. Most people would label such a game simply as an RPG and leave it at that, but the calendar aspect is very much integral and plays a part of the Persona games and shouldn't be ignored. Persona 4 has you as the protagonist setting out to Inaba to live with your uncle Dojima, before the town gets enshrouded in a murder mystery. Your role as the protagonist is to solve the mystery before the end of the year. While I won't spoil too much of the game here, it's very different than Persona 3 in that certain whole sections of the calendar year will be locked off depending on how you answer the questions presented to you. Sometimes an answer will just be that, but other times it'll lead you closer to the truth. While social links can be answered any which way, either correctly to gain rapport with someone or even humorously to see a person's reaction, there will be other times when the path forward will be much harder to see, and multiple playthroughs or save files will be the only way to move forward in case you get lost. I'm starting to sound a bit like Igor, but listen to him when you'll have 90% of the weapons you need at your disposal, the only 10% being your own intuition. The game has you raise personas, or creatures, and beings that represent the ego manifest, in order to deal with the hardships of life and battle to further your goals. These personas are tied to the quality of the tarot, and furthermore, social links. Social links are basically a quantification of relationship quality you have with a certain character in the game, and they will grow as you spend time with them and get to know them. You want to max out at least one social link throughout your playthrough of the game. The RPG element of the game, however, has about as much depth as the previous game in a lot of ways, and I didn't see any real changes the game had to offer. I did like the combination attacks and cavalry attacks the characters had though, and the amount of accessibility in the form of skill cards and compendium summoning can help nurture your personas even further. There are other ways to nurture the skills of your comrades beyond simple social link rapport, and depending on how you go about your first playthrough, you will probably have a favorite persona for yourself and a few strong ones and several weak ones you plan to nurture on another playthrough by the end of the game. A resistance to dark or death is probably going to be necessary though. I found myself quickly devoid of a homunculus, an item that defies insta-death status midway through the last dungeon because of a common enemy type, and had to finish the game on safety because I was too tired of this. I'm sorry. However, that did not deter my enjoyment of the game, and the fact that there even is a safety option I can select whenever is probably a testament to the accessibility options games should have to keep the player engaged in case of situations like this, where you plan out in case something happens and are just met with no way of dealing with it other than grinding more, which is not very optimal or can be counterproductive to storytelling. .hack.gu, Last Recode, Volume 1, Rebirth. As with most collections, I will detail each game separately. .hack.gu, Volume 1, Rebirth is an interesting game. It's a sequel series to the original .hack video game series, and a companion piece, or sequel to .hack Roots anime. .hack.gu follows Saseo, a new character in the .hack franchise, who is of the class Adept Rogue in the fantasy MMORPG The World R2, set in the game series .hack. If that sentence sounds confusing, I do not blame you, because I was deliberately being a bit obtuse. Let's see if I can explain it a bit better. .hack is a series about people playing an MMORPG, The World. The game series reflects this by having characters be classes like Twin Blade, the equivalent of an MMO would probably be Rogue, Wave Master, Mage equivalent, or Adept Rogue. I think the apt equivalent would be the concept of the job change in FF14, put into a class with none of the benefits of a dedicated job. These characters may be available to party, or offline, or busy, depending different ways of making the character unable to party up. Just like the real MMOs, the game is trying to simulate for you. In the game, .hack, you not only play the game, the world, but also check on emails, news, and forum posts in between story segments. The game is very much a mid-2010s web simulator in that regard. For the most part, I'll be reviewing the game portions of this, but know that the news and forum posts are very integral to the experience, and you'll want to browse the game's simulated web for clues about how to progress in the game, and build rapport with your friends. Now, the world portion of the game isn't too complicated. You have a weapon, you press A button to attack in battles, you press R to do quick trigger skills. If you use items called scrolls, you or your friends can use magical abilities like Repth, healing, or elemental spells. Weapons have elements, granting either elemental buffs or status effects to your normal attacks. As an adept rogue, as long as you do class extension quests, you can change your weapon type to eventually whatever and whenever you feel like. You have a menu of items, you can have multiple consumables like potion-like substances for healing your HP or SP, or singles of every single equipment you can grab. Items can also be gifted to your teammates, and they will equip anything that matches their level and class type. I recommend holding on to weapons for a while so you can alchemize, combine weapons into a stronger version unless necessary. Dungeons are generated automatically via Chaos Gate through a random or deliberate selection of 3 unlocked words. Chaos Gate words are given to you as the game progresses through forums and emails. The game caps you at a level 50 for Volume 1, so keep that in mind. I was level 50 and breezed through the endgame and the extra boss fairly easily at around 20 hours in. The game also features shmup-like boss segments that feel separated from the RPG elements of the game. Though Haseo was kind of an asshole of a protag, a real edgelord in a tamer sense, he remained pretty enduring regardless. I am looking forward to the rest of this series so I can get a better sense of how these games go together and the theme it's going for. However, I will say that if you have never seen .hack Roots, you may need to, as it provides important context for the game series. You will be a bit lost without it. The series will feel like a slog of shocking reveals otherwise. I know it's pretty hard to recommend an anime series to play a game, but the cross-media experience is what separates this game series from the others, and I recommend it if you're willing to go outside of your comfort zone a bit. The Legend of Dark Witch, Episode 2, The Price of Desire. The Legend of Dark Witch series makes a return from year 1. While I bought Dark Witch again for footage when I originally beat it on the 3DS, this time I beat it on the Switch. Unlike the first game's remake, this game retains its pixel art look, is fully voiced, and is just as fun and addicting as the first game. The Legend of Dark Witch series marries the conventions of Mega Man and Gradius, creating a wholly new style of gameplay that's worth picking up. The game should run you under 2 hours to beat for the first time. The game further enhances its shop system too, allowing you special techniques and trust slots to power up Zizo even further. TMNT, Shredder's Revenge. I think I picked this up while I was on sale and put it down after getting completely addicted to RPGs last year. Shredder's Revenge is very fun. It's a very fun-filled game filled with nostalgia. Turtles fight the Foot Clan and Krang in an attempt to thwart their takeover of the Statue of Liberty. Unlike previous Turtle beat-em-ups, you can level up, much like in Kunio games. However, unlike those games, where there are no power-up shops with burgers and sushi, this game relies on pure skill. The variety of different stages and hazards are fun, and this game is probably a blast to play with as many friends as possible, rather than alone like I did. Refined Self. I found myself thoroughly captivated by this personality game. It takes about an hour to figure out everything about yourself unless you want to go through for a completionist run. The game pushes you to do 3 runs, all in an attempt to get a good assessment of your personality. Through it, you will have to make decisions on what you are willing to put up with. Through these little actions and decisions on what to do, the game will figure out things about you and feed them to you by the end of the game. After 3 gameplay sessions, the true story will be revealed to you, and the final ending. Sonic X Shadow Generations. For the purposes of brevity, I will be covering Sonic X Shadow Generations as a whole package, with 2 separate experiences rather than 2 different games, though they can count as such in my opinion. You may have heard others call Sonic Generations a celebration of everything that makes Sonic good, and I would have to agree. You have 2 different modes of playing zones, Classic Acts and Modern Acts. Classic Acts and bosses are basically 2D stages, while modern acts and bosses pretty much allow for a 3D range of movement. There are also challenge stages that allow you to collect Chaos Emeralds that count toward the true ending. Meanwhile, Shadow Generations is a much more contemporary experience in the year 2025. Shadow has a much more 3D styled and detailed hub world. It is much more in line with what Sonic Frontiers had to show. The zone styles are very similar to Sonic Generations but allow for more frantic play. Shadow uses combos and QuickTime events, can practically fly across acts almost seamlessly, allowing you to beat stages and bosses much more quickly in its style. Overall, the game is very good, and I recommend picking it up even if you're not much of a Sonic fan. Slime Rancher Plortable Edition. A very fun game where you breed and capture slimes of different types. Has a Pokemon-like farming vibe to it. Your goal is to make it further on this alien planet with a lot of open progression. Unfortunately, I got motion sick several times playing this game, but it's definitely good for small bursts. Windjammers. Nothing much to say about this one. Short arcade game that's part air hockey and part fighting game. There's not much I have to say, but I did have to use a continue. Card-en-Ciel. Neon Nanashiki is a detective for full die games, VR games that are incredibly immersive. After receiving a strange email, he ends up investigating the situation and uncovers a plot that could change the course of reality. This game is hard to explain without some framework. Card-en-Ciel is basically very similar to Mega Man Battle Network, except it's turn-based rather than action-based. You initially deal less damage with your deck in this game than in that game, and sometimes enemies can have far larger HP pool ratios. There is a large amount of difficulties to try and unlock as well. I found the heroine Ansi quite annoying at times, but I understand that this was a story about her and Neon, not about us, the player. There's also a large amount of vocal tracks and spoken dialogue, which may annoy some of you, but I personally liked it. Snufkin, Fuddler's Courtship. This is the epilogue of the Moominvalley game. It's a relatively straightforward bit of story-oriented DLC. There's not much to talk about, but if you like Moomin, you'll get a bit of fun out of this. Dragon Quest Monsters, The Dark Prince. I really like stories where you play or get to see what a villain does in a story that is pretty much mainly about the protagonist winning. It gives context for the eventual ending that is to come. Dragon Quest Monsters, The Dark Prince is one of those games. You play as Sorrow, the main antagonist of Dragon Quest IV, in his attempt to become the master of monster kind by beating his father, Randolpho, the tyrant of Nigeria, which is the world of monster kind. This game series legacy predates Pokemon by a couple of years, but I'll just lightly touch on the way it plays. DQ Monsters is a game where you scout monsters into your party and raise them to stronger heights. Unlike other monster raising games, you want to have a party of 3 to 4 monsters, each with their own roles to play in battle, to take the enemy parties down. There's an emphasis on auto battle and tactics over giving direct commands, though direct commands can be useful, particularly when trying to scout monsters. Fans of Dragon Quest, monster raising games, and such may not find a lot in terms of story in the beginning of the game. There's a lack of compelling narrative that takes at least several core bosses to take out before it starts to get good. But when it gets good, it gets really good. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, the 23rd World Tournament. I played a lot of Dragon Ball games over the years. I love going back over arcs and sagas I grew up with. This was my starting point for DB Kakarot. Not the main game, but the DLC that starts out just before Dragon Ball Z. You can access it fairly early on, though you will lose access to things like the community board benefits and such. There also seems to be a bit of disparity between this DLC's main game content and its post-game content. Listening to the music, playing the fights, and drowning in the nostalgia are the best parts of this game, but I can't recommend it much right now beyond that. It's got a very short story and some extra side content taking place after the 23rd World Tournament. Sonic Superstars. I will start off by saying I do like this game, but the lack of people to play it with is kind of hurtful to my review. It's a fairly long game by Sonic standards for an initial playthrough, with long stages and fun Chaos Emerald flowers to try out. Bosses were also much harder than previous games, and this is something I'd like to see more in Sonic titles. Bosses that use or test your ability to keep momentum at certain key points are very fun. Streets of Rage. As soon as this beat 'em up showed up on the NSO games list, I immediately hopped onto it. Streets of Rage is a classic with a possible good and bad ending. It's a bit on the harder side, with bosses needing certain optimal patterns to defeat them, but it was still a fun time. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4: Turtles in Time. The final game I was able to beat in my allotted backlog time this year. This one was a blast to play, much easier beat 'em up than Streets of Rage at least. The game, however, locks a true ending behind hard mode, so I used the level select in the collection to see it. After all, I didn't have much time left before the end of the year. And with that, the 6th year of my backlog gaming series comes to an end. Things on this channel feel quieter now that we've come so far. But that hasn't really stopped me from gaming, even if life tends to get in the way. I'm not sure what to put in the lessons learned section this year. I guess my big takeaway is to try not to spend too much on sales. Even if you have a project you're undertaking and need every little bit of interest in games you can get your hands on. It'll still take time to get through everything. I'm starting to fall asleep. Furthermore, plans change and the theme you are chasing at the beginning of a project may not always look the same as toward the end of it. I also learned that streaming can be fun, even with low audience numbers. It makes a good record of your play and lets you look back at what you've done and your natural thoughts and feelings at the previous points in time. But it can also be a lot of work and draining when it comes to the experience of playing a game. You feel the need to perform at a higher level even though that always shouldn't be the case. This next year is a vacation year for me. Alongside beating the Backlog, I also beat the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy collection of games I had already previously owned. I guess I could also talk about that, but basically I did post-game content and everything, and I'm ready to do it from scratch again, starting with Mega Man Battle Network 2's Hard Mode, and ending with Mega Man Battle Network 6's Side Beast Pulsar. I plan to stream this entire year on the secret VTuber channel that I have mentioned previously, so if you want to find it, check it out. I'll also be playing other games in between, so it won't all be stream content. I guess I could also use the clip button this time around more often, instead of relying on recording footage. However, I also plan to cover new editions of older games I've already played, such as updated ones or Nintendo Switch 2 editions. I already got a few in mind like Adventure Bar Story, Shantae Half Genie Hero, Sonic Colors, and Shadow Generations, Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Odyssey, just to name a few off the top of my head that I know are either getting updates or already have an update. Whether I count them in my backlog or not is up to my discretion. Usually I don't do this sort of thing, but it would be a good theme for next year alongside the Battle Network stuff. Tell me what you think. What do you want from me? Anyways, I think that's everything I wanted to cover today. Thank you for listening to me ramble on. If you got anything out of this, please leave a like. Till next time, bye.
Will become her devoted fans. Heyo, what's up, Nethertube?
That's not the plan.
Hey, welcome to my stream, everyone. I'll be playing the new Rosen Queen Company game, C4's Workshop.
Why are you going along with this?
And that name's sketchy as hell.
In this game, you mix gunpowder with more gunpowder to make an extremely powerful gunpowder.